either, and I say neither, either, either, neither, neither. Let's call the whole thing off. You like potato, and I like potato. You say tomato, and I say tomato. Potato, tomato, potato, potato. Let's call the whole thing off. But oh, if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And oh, if we ever part, then that might break my heart. So if you like pajamas and I like pajamas, I'll wear pajamas and give up pajamas. For we know we need each other, so we better call the calling off off. Let's call the whole thing off.
You say laughter and I say laughter. You say after and I say after. Laughter, laughter, after, after. Let's call the whole thing off. You like vanilla and I like vanilla. You sarsaparilla and I sarsaparilla. Vanilla, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. Let's call the whole thing off. But oh, if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And oh, if we ever part, then that might break my heart. So if you go for oysters and I go for oysters, I'll order oysters and give up the oysters. For we know we need each other, so we better call the calling off off. Let's call the whole thing off.
You say either,
You say either,
you say neither,
you say neither,
either,
either,
neither.
neither.
Let's call the whole thing off.
You like potato,
And you like potato,
you like tomato,
and you like tomato,
potato,
potato,
tomato.
tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. But oh, if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And oh, if we ever part, then that might break my heart. So if you like pajamas,
And you like pajamas, I'll wear pajamas and give up pajamas. For we know we need each other, so we better call the calling off off. Let's call the whole thing off. Let's call the whole thing off.
This bridge time, if you drive a car, if you've ever driven a car, if you plan on driving a car anytime in the near future, our speaker today has some information you may find useful. For the last couple of years, my firm and I have had the opportunity to work with the two companies in charge with constructing the downtown crossing right outside the window here, and the East End crossing, which is going to eventually connect far eastern Jefferson County with an area near Utica, Indiana. One of the first people I met when I got involved in this project was our speaker, John Saxtetter.
Here, can you hold that onto that?
John is a walking, talking, breathing website of information when it comes to this project, current, past, and future. John's been involved with it for a long time, going back to the days when it was keeping Tyler Allen awake at night. Just kidding, Tyler. But about John, John's a native. John is a Louisville native, a graduate of the University of Louisville Speed Scientific School, and upon graduating, worked for a lot of years at the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. For about 10 years, he was the director of highway design. When he retired there in 2000, was an assistant state highway engineer. Shortly after retiring, John decided he was too young to be retired, and so he joined HMB Professional Engineers as part owner and as director of highway designs. And John will give you a little more insight on his history and involvement with the project, but he's a wealth of information. And he'll provide a good update in terms of what's going on downtown in the East End. So please welcome John Saxtetter.
Thank you, Dan. I want to start off by saying that I promised I wouldn't razz Fowler if he didn't razz me. You already set a tone, now I'm in trouble. I did want to add to my introduction. Actually, besides, since I was keeping Fowler awake, but I go way back beyond that. Not on? All right, I'm going to have to go up here, I guess. All right. Better? All right, sorry about that. I was hearing myself fine. What I started to say is, I go way back beyond that. I joined the Transportation Cabinet in 1972. In 1973, I was given the Gene Snyder, then known as Jefferson Freeway, to design, and I designed it from Preston to Beulah Church Road, and then I oversaw the consultants that was designing it from Beulah Church over to 42. So that was 1 year into my career. So I've spent my whole career trying to get this project across the river, and in '78, I was involved with an oversight of redesign of the Kennedy interchange. So I like to say that sometimes I procrastinate, but this one's a little bit longer than normal, but I think we're getting there. As Dan referenced, the project is a joint venture of the Kentucky and Indiana. As most everybody knows, we have a downtown bridge, and we have new construction over on the East End. In the downtown area, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet is in the lead for doing all of the construction work, including that portion that's over on Indiana. We do work, obviously, with Indiana personnel for what's going on over there, but the East End is being constructed completely by Indiana with, once again, now I'm working on the Kentucky side with some coordination effort. So again, your maps here just kind of shows you the locations. There's about 8 miles apart between the two bridges. And the need for that overall project is to improve our capacity and promote some safety issues, etc. So this slide is showing what says existing Kennedy, but we all know if you look out the window, and we did talk about just forgetting the slides and move everybody to the window so you could take a look at it better in full 3D. Obviously, that's what it was before all the construction started. It's not what's existing out there today. A lot of the problems there were the weave issues, coming off 64, 71, trying to get up north 65. We all know that those problems. A lot of very tight curves, which caused safety issues. We had a history that we did for 5 years that there was 5 crashes every single day in the Kennedy interchange for that 5-year. So again, pretty evident what the needs were. This is looking at what the interchange will look like afterwards. Now you have to be looking at it fairly carefully, and I don't know how well you can see. Obviously we're building it back in this existing footprint. But what we've done is eliminate all those weaves. There's a few additional lanes, not as many as we had back at the beginning, Tyler, but we've got a few additional lanes. So that if you're coming up 64 and want to get up on 65, there's going to be ramps specifically that's going to take you there. You're not going to be having to weave across anybody else. Everybody has its own movements to get on this when it's done. We flattened the curvature, so where we've had a lot of truck wrecks, with them coming around the sharp curves and flipping, all that's being flattened out to where, can't say that we're going to eliminate all wrecks because we still got drivers, wait for those driverless vehicles, but I think we will greatly improve the situation to where we will have a much lesser problem with that. Again, it's difficult to see. What you see in the dark black is where the new pavement is, the white is new structures that's being constructed, and obviously it's pretty much an overlay of what's existing out there today. This is truly what's existing. This is a picture from just a few weeks ago looking down, and the real point of this, and one of the gentlemen asked earlier about why are we building this and why is it in the middle, etc. The fact is we're building on the existing footprint. That's what was ultimately decided as we produced the original project. So in doing that, what they've done is build to the outside of the existing footprint, get what lanes they can in, then you start shifting people over to those new lanes, which leaves all the middle has to be removed, and then you start building the middle in. So again, if you look carefully, and it's a little difficult to see here, I would use a pointer, but I can't point both directions, so you're just gonna have to trust me on this. Again, you can see the bridges extending out and stopping. You can get a feel for how, again, you can see the new constructions on the outside. That's where all the traffic is moving to now as they're completing that work. And then you can see the pieces in the middle that are going to have to be connected. So those are the pieces that are coming up for the construction in the Kennedy interchange. Move on along a little bit. These are visualizations of the downtown bridge. We are building a 3-tire cable-stayed bridge. Again, you can see the tires out there. They have been capped off now. They're starting to hang the cables on them. It will be 6 lanes northbound, and once it's finished construction, Kennedy Bridge itself will be redecked, and it will become 6 lanes southbound. So totally separate movement between the two bridges. Obviously, it's located east of the Kennedy Bridge. The new bridge is 99 feet wide, and we're 71 feet of water, above water. The center tire out there is 280 feet in the air. The end tires are 230 feet in the air. And one of the questions I frequently got is, why did it take longer to build the Kentucky side than it did the Indiana side? And it's simply, on the Indiana side, the water depth is only 10 feet. On the Kentucky side is 30 feet. So obviously, to bring it up out of the water, it was slower to bring it up, and therefore, and as you get in the middle, it's 20 feet. So, and obviously the middle tire was much taller. So that was the differences and why the Indiana actually topped out sooner than the others. This is, while you can look out the window and see it, maybe gives you somewhat of a view, but we had a group went up on the top of the center tire, and this is actually a picture from the top of the center tire. The left picture is looking back into Louisville and looking from the center tire down on the new bridge, and you can see again the shape of the tires, and we are starting to extend the girders out. You can see that a little bit more on the right one, which is looking back into Indiana, and they've got quite a bit of the girders completed, plus a lot of the approach work coming up to the bridge itself. So again, just giving you a view, perhaps something a little different than what those of you go over there and see all the time. You can see a lot of this, but this gives you maybe a little bit better perspective of what's happening. And as they build these girders out on each one of the tires, they'll slowly interconnect, and they hook the cables to hold this thing together. Looking over on the Indiana side, again, this is labeled existing. Getting a little bit of a falsehood. It is what it was before. This view, the colors kind of shows you all the construction that's going on, or is to go on the Indiana side. Obviously, if we're building a new 6-lane facility going north, adding that many more lanes, we have to add the laneage to come on up into Indiana, plus the ramps and things have to change, since what's out there today is now going to be strictly southbound. So as you build all this, again, it's the same thing as I just finished talking about with the Kennedy interchange. You have to build the outside first. Obviously, a lot of that is over on the Jeffersonville side, so particularly as you can see where the bridge is and where the new lanes are. So a lot of that affected the Court Avenue ramps, and that area is affected by the way that approach has to occur. And again, these are a couple pictures. You can see the dark pavement where they've got the new pavements, and some new structures in there. So, you know, again, just giving you a feel. This is looking back to Court Avenue, back up towards the bridge. again, just giving you a feel for what the construction is. Obviously, there's been some recent moves of the interstate over there. We have shut it down to 2 lanes, and a lot of that is going to continue through the latter part of the year. There is some reconstruction going on associated with making the ties from the Clark Memorial back to 65. I don't know if you can quite see that bridge there or not. You can see a stub sticking out, but that's part of the work that's going on right now, and that's restricting traffic from being able to get down on Court Avenue directly from the 2nd Street. It's more circuitous, and we have a detour route associated with that. Just looking on up to 10th Street, just looking a little bit further. The construction work on the Indiana side extends to just north of Stansifer Avenue. So again, that's where it will be tying in. But a lot of the work, it's just as we move forward with these extra lanes, we drop lanes at interchanges, so it's more just the tie-in to get above Stansifer. There's not that much extensive work above Stansifer. We'll talk about the East End crossing here. Again, most of you are probably familiar with it, but for those who aren't, we are looking at tying the Gene Snyder Freeway, Kentucky 841, basically from its configuration at I-71, and it will extend across the river to Indiana 265 over near State Road 62, Port Road. And we'll talk a little bit about all the pieces of those crossings. What's referenced there as Section 4 is the Kentucky approaches. As I stated, Indiana is doing this construction. It's 3.2 miles long, and it's engineers like numbers about pavements and things. You all can read them or not read them, but just giving you a feel for what's going on. One of the obvious questions again is, yes, we have a tunnel being constructed out there. It was protecting a historic property. It was a mitigative effort. This project was delayed for many years because we was trying to resolve how we get past that historic property. Yes, there would have been a potential if we wanted to wait many more years to work through a historic process. But we had 2 governors that came together and said, this project has been delayed too long. We need to find a way to get it going. The tunnel goes underneath that historic property known as Drummondard. It is not passing underneath the house. A lot of people think that. It is passing underneath the property itself, but the entire property is considered historic. It's one of the original country estates, and it is a contributing element of what's called the country estates of River Road, which obviously there's many other estates up and down River Road. So it was a very protected property and was a high concern for many, many people that caused us to build this tunnel. But as we're going under it, it was considered a mitigation, and it became an acceptable way to move forward. A lot of people think that the tunnel is the major cost of this project. I'm not saying it's not a major cost, but as you can see up here on the screen, we're in a very low plane as we come to the new bridge. We have a 2,000-foot long approach bridge coming up to the new bridge. We have to go over Harris Creek and River Road. We have a 1,200-foot long bridge that has to go over those facilities. We also have the Wolf Pen Branch Bridge, which is the new crossing of Wolf Pen, and we'll see a picture of that here in a moment. It's 187 feet. It's a little short one compared to the others, but it's a pretty good structure. And then we have the tunnel itself, which is 1,800 feet long. Now, let me talk about the tunnel here just a second, because a lot of people have concerns about the tunnel. At 1,800 feet, that's about twice as long as the Cochran Tunnel on 64. The Cumberland Gap Tunnel, which is the other tunnel that passes out of Kentucky, is a mile long. So you can get a relationship if you're familiar with those tunnels. At 1,800 feet, if you think about it, At 60 miles an hour, it's going to take you about 20 seconds to pass through that tunnel. It's not considered a significantly long tunnel. It does not have the controls. Questions over and over again, oh, we're going to have to stop traffic if we have hazardous materials going through. It's not considered that long of a tunnel. It's, like I say, it's longer than Cochrane Tunnel, but it's really not treated any different than the Cochrane Tunnel. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a very long tunnel. So again, just kind of keeping in your mind the concepts that this isn't that big of a tunnel. It just has to goes under US 42, goes under Drummondard, immediately comes out of Drummondard and drops down to Harrods Creek. Now, one of the other questions I get about Harrods Creek, well, you're down here at the Ohio River. How dumb are you building a tunnel? You're going to have everything flooded. Well, if it's floods, we've got a whole lot more problems than that. The tunnel is up at a high elevation, and it takes something a little over a 500-year storm to flood that tunnel. So, yeah, we could get flooded, but better be getting out in your arks if we do have that trouble. This is a little view of what it will look like ultimately after the construction is done. Just giving you the feel for what they intend to do for finishing touches on the tunnel, just a visualization. One of the other confusing things to people is the connection to US 42. And essentially the connections, where it ties in up at US 42 today, as far as getting on and off, the end points there at 42 stay exactly the same. Okay? So your ramp that's coming on going to I-71 is going to be there just like it is today. What happens on the other side, as you've now got this 4-lane facility, is what you see here. You'll have the ramp coming off the right-hand side, and where the ramp fundamentally is coming up to 42 today, obviously it's been shifted somewhat, but it's going to fly over because you've gone down in the ground to go down to the tunnel. The tunnel you can see right ahead. Tunnel's down in the ground 65 feet. So the face of that tunnel, the bottom of it is 65 feet below. So that ramp is up there at about the elevation that the ramp is today. So fundamentally everything stays the same as we do the operation. And I'll go ahead and answer the question now before it's asked. Yes, we only have a half interchange based on community input back when we was trying to move forward with the design of the project. There was a high concern from Prospect and many community members out there that they did not want a full interchange. They did not want to encourage the developments that sometimes comes with that. So therefore, if you want to come out of Prospect and you want to go to Indiana, you will get on the ramp. You will go up and use the loops at I-71, and you'll take the double loop, and then you can go back to Indiana. Same thing, people coming from Indiana who want to stop at Prospect will come down, catch the loop, and double back to Prospect. Or you can go over and visit the paddock or wherever else you want to visit, make that turnaround as well. But that is part of the project, and that's what was desired at the time. These are some views. Y'all drive past the construction out there, and you know there's a big hole down in the ground, but it's very difficult to see what's happening down there. Picture on the left obviously is showing you the face of the tunnel. The excavation is totally complete through the tunnel now. They are starting to get all of the interior, they've got some of the interior lining done. They've been pouring the floors. They've still got to get some of the drainage and everything in there. Obviously a lot of electronics and things will have to go into the tunnel as it moves forward. Picture on the right is actually from up inside the tunnel, obviously looking back to the surface exit out there, and you can see that they've got the steel in there where they're pouring the floors. It's difficult to see in this view. On my computer you can actually see some of the lining and everything, but it looks pretty dark in looking at it in this view. But again, they're moving along, progressing very, very well with the tunnel. They're moving ahead with all the excavation to get it down. This is looking at the view. You can see the tunnel up the upper right-hand corners is going over. You can kind of get a feel for going up to US 42 to the left. You have The new construction, again, you can sort of see the dark gray there where the new road has been built and they've shifted everything over. They just completed this past week the excavation under Wolf Pen. Wolf Pen obviously used to be under Kentucky 841, and now that's flip-flopped, so Wolf Pen's over. This week they demolished the old Wolf Pen bridge, so that's all now out of the picture. So now they can finish off the new Wolf Pen bridge and complete on with the rest of the roadway work that's going on, and that does extend all the way back to I-71. We are not doing anything with the I-71 interchange. The Transportation Cabinet has two other projects that are associated with I-71 and the interchange itself. So I think there is a one ramp to be reconstructed that's supposed to go to letting a little bit later this year, and then the major reconstruction to 71, more of a rehab, and work on the interchange is out 2018, I think is what the current plan shows. This one is just looking, again, this is coming out of the portal of the tunnel, and this is your bridges over Harrods Creek. They've actually progressed. This is maybe a little bit older picture, but again, you can see Harrods Creek. Again, it's difficult to see, but River Road is right there in the center at the far point where you can see the girders going across is River Road, and then it's progressing on down towards the river. So again, lots of work going on there. The bridge itself is progressing pretty well. East End Bridge, it is a two-tired diamond-shaped tire. For those of you who may have been out there and looked at the bridge, because of the way it's constructed, and I'll show you a few pictures of that here in just a second, bringing it up in the diamond is a little bit longer to shape than what the tires are over here. So fundamentally, it looks like the East End Bridge is a little bit further behind, but they've got across the upper portion of it now, and the upper portion of it will go faster. They'll be getting to the point that they'll be doing the cables here soon, and they're not going to be that far behind because there's more bridge involved in being built over here. It's a longer bridge. The new bridge does have a bicycle pedestrian facility on it. We will have a tourist area as soon as you come off the bridge where you're going to be able to stop on your bike, or if you want to take a walk, you can go over there and you'll be able to look out across the whole area there. There are some lime kilns, and we were going to have some cards or some placards there that it tells about the history of the lime industry in Indiana. One of the questions again that I hear, the original plan was to do 6 lanes. In deciding that we need to reduce the cost of the project, we reduced it to 4 lanes. Well, we did that because we looked very carefully at the traffic, and we determined that by 2030 there was not really a need for 6 lanes yet. That the point that it reaches 2030 or reaches the need for 6 lanes is well beyond 2030. So the decision was we could reduce it to 4 lanes, but unlike the Cochrane Tunnel, we didn't want to hamper ourselves such that we can never get our 6 lanes. So both the Ohio River Bridge and the tunnel are designed that at the point that there is a need for 6 lanes, all we have to do is restripe, and then they can come and do the roadway work to make it work. So we have not limited ourselves at all, and we've prepared for the future. Again, here's some pictures. The picture on the left, again, is you're seeing the approach bridge coming up to the new Ohio River Bridge. You can see the construction going out in the river. Picture on the right, again, you're seeing the bottom half of the tire. They're at the point where the girders can actually start being placed, and then they'll have the diamond come on up, and that's what will come up later. There's 22 steps in building the East End Bridge, and they're at step 10, but again, the top 12 steps are going to go much, much faster. Again, this is just looking over the Indiana side. Unlike on the Kentucky side, where we're in a very low floodplain and have to build a bridge. As soon as you go across the river and hit Indiana, it's in a pure rock bluff. So we go into a big cut just as soon as you go across the river. We'd like to talk about the White Cliffs of Indiana. So the picture on the right, one of the feature elements of the work in Indiana is a new interchange at Salem Road. That's going to connect the city of Utica with the Port Authority and River Ridge. This interchange will, Patrol Road is just off to the right of your picture there, and this is feeding directly into the River Ridge development where all of the Amazon and all the other development is currently occurring. One of the other things that are talked about is roundabouts. This is again State Road 265 coming into 62, the Port Road, and we have, oops, punched one too many. We have 3 roundabouts that are being proposed for this facility. Dan and crew headed up a public forum just about a week and a half ago, in which they had a billboard size sheet that they put down on the floor where people could walk around, and much easier to look down at these big pictures and explain exactly how these things work. But again, roundabouts reduces the number of conflict points. You may have the occasional fender bender, but you don't have the major collisions. Your safety is greatly improved with roundabouts. It moves traffic more efficiently, and the state decided that they wanted to do the roundabouts instead of having interchanges. So again, there is a roundabout to serve Port Road, and then there's 2 roundabouts as the interchange comes to US 62. And here's a picture actually showing it as it's constructed. You can see on the right-hand side there the roundabout that's nearing completion there for the Port Road. There has been some confusion in the newspaper, and I need to wrap up here quickly, I recognize. It was reported that the east end was to be finished construction by the end of this year. That is definitely incorrect. The interchange itself and some of that area is to be finished this fall, but the rest of the construction, the bridge, tunnel, and everything does run on until next year, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. Downtown, the new bridge is to be completed January 2016. We will be moving traffic over to the new bridge. Kennedy Bridge will then have to be closed, and it will be shut down for about 6 to 8 months as we do some structural repairs and convert it to be a 6-lane facility southbound. After that's completed, then they've got a few months to make the final ramp tie-ins to the new facilities, so therefore finished by January 2016. The east end is scheduled to be completed by October 2016, and I referenced substantial completion. What that means is the roadways themselves are completed, and there is still some work, some landscaping type work, but nothing that will interfere with traffic is to occur after those dates. Landscaping will probably occur out in the spring of 2017. I want to reference our website very quickly, www.KYINBridges, easy to remember. It's KentuckyIndianaBridges.com. For those of you who have never been on it, just about anything you want to know is on there. We have a series of 2-minute videos that tells you about what's going on in both the downtown and east end. The east end was just posted just a couple weeks ago. We have 24 cameras throughout, camera locations located in the downtown. You can go on there, you can see pictures of exactly what's happened, you can run it back, and you can see a time lapse of all the construction in that area. East end, there are also cameras on the bridge itself, but because we were up near a lot of homes, we couldn't put cameras up around other areas, but we have lots and lots of aerial photographs and other photographs that are put on there. And with that, I'll wrap up, and I know we're squeezed on time.
It is 1 o'clock, but we're going to open up the mics for a few questions for John. Stay up here for a second.
All right.
So the cold weather, I gathered, had no effect with the completion dates since we had an unusual winter.
Obviously, not only the cold weather, but also a lot of heavy rains where the river came up. And yes, that has had an impact, but they're trying to play catch up. At this point, when we built our contract, there were 60 days built into the downtown for weather that was supposed to be for the life of the contract. They have fundamentally hit 60 days, so anything more could start affecting their schedule. But they have to show that it's actually a critical path element before there's a decision that there is any type of time extensions. And that decisions have not been made. It's still being observed, and they're still trying to play catch up. They're working hard to be back where they need to be.
Leland?
Thank you. Will there be any kind of opening ceremonies or celebrations, or will you just let traffic start to flow?
Well, I've never seen a political group not wanting to be participatory in a major event like this, so I expect there will be some very major occurrences as things get completed, even to the point of, like I say, when the new bridge is finished up here, I wouldn't be too surprised to see some celebrations of making that milestone. So obviously I'm not the one that plans the parties, I just get to show up behind the scenes.
Bill?
Yeah, at the time when everything is finished, are they going to restrict the 65, forbid trucks from going over there unless they have business here in this area?
No,
I mean, around?
no. There is no consideration at this point of shifting the truck traffic. A lot of trucks obviously come into the downtown area, so to try to determine which trucks are trying to deliver in the downtown, and obviously you have to trust them to do their business appropriately. But a lot of trucks coming out of River Ridge, et cetera, are obviously going to go to the east end. So the traffic is going to become less in the downtown simply because some of it does go to the east end.
Last year, this past summer, we had some concerns with the flight box for Thunder due to the cranes and the height of the towers downtown. As next year's board chair for Thunder over Louisville, I'm wondering if we're going to have that same issue restricting flight box and being able to bring in the big acts.
Well, again, obviously the big cranes were there for the new bridge construction. That'll all be completed. Now, there is some girder work that has to occur with the rehabilitation of the Kennedy, and I don't know exactly how that'll affect or exactly when those time frames will fall. That'll probably be, there's probably people that are looking out that far, but I just don't have that direct answer right now. Sir?
What about the 2nd Street Bridge, and what about tolls on all of the bridges?
The second Street Bridge, other than our tie-in on the Indiana side, there's nothing else to occur to that bridge. The 2nd Street Bridge is not a tolled bridge. It will remain a free bridge. The tolls will be strictly on the Kennedy Bridge, the new bridge, and the East End Bridge. That'll be strictly where the tolls are located.
John, thank you so much. We appreciate all your
Surely.
information. Fantastic presentation today. Before we go,